Well, this is what Joe Lunardi, our bracketologist, has Gonzaga 17-0 on the season, the lone undefeated team left in college basketball, a 2 seed, along with Baylor, Florida State, and North Carolina. And why not, Sean, go to the source of bracketology and welcome in Joey Brackets. Joey, I know you never sleep, so we got to get to the obvious question with Gonzaga. With that type of resume, 17-0 on the season, why aren't the Zags a #1 seed?
I think it's more a question of what are the credentials of the teams ahead of them. And right now we've probably got 6 teams in the country, Baylor included from the 2 line, that are worthy of #1 seed consideration in a very legitimate way. And what we've also seen, guys, in recent years is geography playing a larger part of where teams are sent and why. And I just think if we were looking at Selection Sunday this weekend, the committee's inclination would be to keep both UCLA and Gonzaga out west because of the early round advantages that would give them in terms of minimal travel and fan support. So at this moment, I'm kind of looking at those 2 as fighting for 1 and 2 in the West. Of course, both teams in action tonight, both winning big right now.
Gonzaga still has, Joe, BYU, a road matchup against them, and then the road matchup against St. Mary's. How much, though, does the conference, the West Coast Conference specifically, play into the factor of Gonzaga's seeding?
It hasn't in recent years. I mean, they've been a 1, they've been a 2, they've been a 3. If they're one of the 4 best teams 8 weeks from now, they're going to be recognized and seeded accordingly. I have no doubt about that, regardless of conference affiliation. They're also far less likely to lose multiple games because of UCLA being in the Pac-12. Gonzaga a little bit stronger out of conference than UCLA. The Bruins with the 1 huge win, of course, at Kentucky, which is as good a win as any team in the country has. Here we're about at the halfway point or so. It'll all work itself out. If I had to make a prediction, I think at the end of the day, Gonzaga will have an equal or better seed than UCLA. I just don't think you can make a clear case for one over the other at this point, at least enough to move one of them out of their natural region.
Joe, if they go the rest of the way unbeaten going into the tournament, is that enough to be the #1 seed, or is it still based on what everybody else does?
#1 seed overall, that would depend on what other folks do. I mean, if Villanova runs the table at this point, and that may seem unlikely, but you're talking about a senior class that's 102 games over 500 in their career, it could happen. I don't think Gonzaga would pass Villanova for #1 overall. And then, you know, Kansas has incredible competition in the Big 12, yet they've won the league a dozen years in a row, going for 13. I think #1 overall is unlikely. It's also really, really, really hard to go undefeated for an entire regular season. I think we've seen 3 since the turn of the century.
Either way, it's going to be an interesting run the rest of the way for Gonzaga. Joe Lunardi, our ESPN bracketologist, joining us. Joe, thanks so much. Get some sleep.
You bet.
It's an interesting dynamic, though, as Gonzaga, with Williams putting the bucket in 32-12 now over Santa Clara, the largest lead for the Zags thanks to a 13-0 run. Where Gonzaga fits, because if they do go undefeated, it's going to be very hard for the committee to say, no, you're not a #1 seed.
I think it's going to be extremely difficult to not give them a